It seems producer Kanye West has lit a firestorm of controversy when he tweeted the following on October 8, 2022. I am a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew also. You guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who opposes your agenda. Now there's a lot of people who believe that Kanye West is crazy, and then there's people who believe he's a genius. But it was Aristotle who said, there is no great genius without a touch of madness. The distance between insanity and genius is measured only by success. Now, do I think Kanye West is a bit mad? I do, but not because of one single incident, but based upon a pattern of behavior over a course of time. Kanye is a contradiction on display in real time.
Red Cross is doing everything they can. We already realize a lot of the people that could help are at war right now, fighting another way, and they've given them permission to go down and shoot us.
And subtle, but in even many ways more profoundly devastating, is the lasting damage to the survivors' will to rebuild and remain in the area. The destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about black people. Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time. Hey, everyone listen to this, please. 2 days before I was in the hospital, I was on opioids. I was addicted to opioids. I had plastic surgery because I was trying to look good for y'all. I got liposuction because I didn't want y'all to call me fat like y'all called Rob at the wedding and made him fly home before me and Kim got married. I didn't want y'all to call me fat, so I got liposuction.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all?
It was something about when I put this hat on, it made me feel like Superman. You made a Superman. That's my favorite superhero. And you made a Superman cape for me also as a guy that looks up to you, looks up to Ralph Lauren, looks up to American industry guys, non-political. Love this guy right here. Let me give this guy a hug right here.
Kanye West has gotten into more hot water, this time after he suggested a fentanyl overdose caused George Floyd's death, not homicide. The attorney who represents the Floyd family, Lee Merritt, signaled they are considering suing the rapper. Ye's recent tweets and controversial interviews even drew the attention of former President Donald Trump, who called Ye's actions, quote, crazy, and said he needs help.
I actually am a person that's classified as black. You know, I classify myself as Jew.
Which brings us back to the tweet. Let's take a look at an honest assessment of the Kanye situation and unpack it to see where the anti-Semitism lies. And we'll also take a look at the controversial tweet by NBA star Kyrie that landed him in hot water. Kanye's tweet opened with, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight," which doesn't amount to much, but the next line felt a little problematic. "But when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people." When I first heard this, I thought it was a threat. Not necessarily a physical threat, because let's be realistic, no matter how much money Kanye West is supposed to have, he could not finance even a portion of a military to rival Israel and its allies. But rather, I thought it was going to be a verbal threat coming, i.e. exposing people. But honestly, I didn't even know what DEFCON 3 meant, which is actually DEFCON 3, which surprisingly puts me in the line with what Candace Owens was saying.
What is DEFCON 3? Did he mean DEFCON 3, which would be a military defense position, not an offense for those of you that are offended, a military defense position?
According to nuke.fast.org, in the event of a national emergency, a series of 7 different alert conditions, LERTCONs, can be called. The 7 LERTCONs are broken down into 5 defense conditions, DEFCONs, and 2 emergency conditions, EMERGECONs. DEFCON 3 means increase in force readiness above normal readiness. Kanye would go on in his tweet to say, "The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew also," which he doubled down on October 15th on Drink Champs and October 19th on Piers Morgan. We're going to examine that claim later, but Ye would also issue an apology on Morgan's platform and explain who he was referring to.
My tweet referring to all Jewish people, I said, for the sake of this conversation, I will refer to the business people who have destroyed me and my people and my fellow creatives. I will say I'm sorry for the people that I hurt with the DEFCON, the confusion that I call. I feel like I cause hurt and confusion. And I'm sorry for the families of the people that had nothing to do with the trauma that I had been through, and that I use my platform where you say hurt people, and I was hurt.
Is there any validity to Kanye's claim of entertainment industry executives? Or is any criticism off limits to members of any particular group, regardless if it's warranted or not? Let's take a look at some of the biggest companies in the world to either affirm or disprove Kanye West's state of mind. Let's begin with perhaps the biggest artist in music history, Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was managed by Frank DeLeo, an Italian music executive who also portrayed gangster Teddy Cicero in Martin Scorsese's movie Goodfellas. In 1975, Michael Jackson and his 4 brothers left Motown Records and signed with CBS Records' Epic Records under the direction of CBS President Walter Yetnikoff, a Brooklyn-born Jewish American, where MJ would forge a burgeoning solo career. In January 1988, Walter Yetnikoff was the chief architect of the sale of CBS Records to Sony Corporation to create Sony Music Entertainment. By 1990, Sony had named Bronx-born Italian-American Tommy Mottola CEO, and the company was renamed Sony Music. Tommy Mottola was the chairman and CEO of Sony Music for nearly 15 years. In 1993, Mottola married singer Mariah Carey. Carey recounted in her book, "From the moment he signed me, he tried to wash the urban off of me." In another portion, she recounted that he said of Sean Diddy Combs, "Puffy will be shining my shoes in 2 years." Michael Jackson later stated that his relationship with Mottola dissolved based on corruption in Mottola's working practices, and accused him of being a racist who exploited black talent. Tommy has used the N-word to a fellow black artist while Jackson was in the room.
Throughout the years, black artists have been taken advantage of completely. And it's time now that we have to put a stop to this incredible injustice. And like Mrs. Sharpton was saying, people from James Brown to Sammy Davis Jr., some of the real pioneers that inspired me to be the entertainer that I am. These artists are always on tour because if they stopped touring, they would totally go broken. And it's been, the record companies really do conspire against their artists. They steal, they cheat, they do whatever they can, especially the black artists.
Now let me say this.
Sony, Tommy Mottola. Tommy Mottola is the president of the record division. He is a mean, He's a racist, and he's very, very, very devilish. Sony being being the artist that I am at Sony, I've generated several $1 billion for Sony, several billion, and they really thought that my mind is always on music and dancing, and it usually is, but they never thought that this performer, myself, would outthink them.
Yeah!
So I'm leaving Sony a free agent. Owning half of Sony. So I own half of Sony's publishing, and I'm leaving them, and they're very angry at me because of it, but I just did good business, you know.
Record
album's
sales?
#1 all over the world. All over the world. America's the only one because I don't want to say too much.
But it's not #1 in the United States.
It's conspiracy, yeah. I don't want to say too much. I'm done.
In 1980, Michael Jackson founded his own personal publishing company, My Jack Music, which grew into a formidable catalog, giving the singer ownership of his own compositions. In 1984, Associated Television, ATV, a British television broadcasting company which had entered into the music industry, music catalog was up for sale. The package included buildings, a recording studio, and studio equipment, and a nearly 4,000 song catalog, including all of the Beatles compositions. On August 10th, 1985, Michael Jackson would purchase ATV for $47.5 million, giving him full ownership of all of the Beatles' music. Jackson would go on to purchase the music of Bob Dylan, Sly and the Family Stone, Taylor Swift, songs by legendary Philadelphia soul team of Kenneth Gamble and Leon Huff, as well as songs made famous by other artists such as Ray Charles, Elvis Presley, and Aretha Franklin, plus thousands of more songs, including Ain't No Stopping Us Now, After Midnight, Ease On Down the Road, Great Balls of Fire, Your Love Keep Lifting Me Higher and Higher, I Got a Woman, If You Don't Know Me By Now, Love Train, Mr. Bojangles, People Get Ready, Run Around Suit, Shake, Rattle and Roll, 16 Candles, The Wanderer, What I'd Say, When a Man Loves a Woman, and You Don't Know Me, and many, many more. In 2007, Jackson's company purchased the publishing company Famous Music for $370 million, meaning Michael Jackson even now owned Eminem's entire back catalog. In the mid-90s, when Jackson was in debt, he sold half of ATV to Sony, forming the joint venture Sony ATV. Michael Joseph Jackson died suddenly on June 25, 2009. By March 2016, the Michael Jackson estate had agreed to sell its remaining stake in his lucrative music catalog to Sony Corporation for $750 million. The agreement for Jackson's half share of the Sony ATV music publishing catalog would give Sony sole ownership of the works by the Beatles, Taylor Swift, Bob Dylan, and others, making Sony Music Publishing, formerly Sony ATV Music Publishing, the largest music publisher in the world. Now, let's take a look at the incomparable artist Prince. Prince was managed by Owen Robert Husney, the son of Georgette and Irvin Husney, an immigrant from Aleppo, Syria, and the grandson of rabbinic judge Rabbi Eliyahu Husney. Minneapolis-born Prince Rogers Nelson signed a record deal with Warner Brothers Records at the age of 19 in 1977. The founders of Warner Brothers were Harry Warner, Albert Warner, Sam Warner, and Jack L. Warner. They were 4 of 11 children born to an Ashkenazi Jewish shoemaker named Benjamin Wanzel from the village of Krasnoziak, Poland. Harry Warner was born Hertz Moses Wanzel. Albert Warner was born Abraham Wanzel. Samuel Lewis Warner was born Shmuel Wanzel. And Jack Warner was born Jacob Warner in 1892. Their father had immigrated to Baltimore, Maryland in 1888 in order to pursue his trade in shoes and shoe repair. It was at that time that he changed the family name to Warner, which was used thereafter. As in many Jewish immigrant families, some of the children gradually acquired anglicized versions of their Yiddish-sounding names. Youngest brother Jack Warner assumed exclusive control of the company in the 1950s when he secretly purchased his brother's shares in the business after convincing them to participate in a joint sale of stocks. Jack Warner remained the president of Warner Brothers until his death in 1978. Following Prince's 1984 movie release, Purple Rain, Prince had reached full stardom. By 1985, funded and distributed by Warner, Prince set up Paisley Park Records. He launched the careers of acts like Morris Day and the Time, Sheila E., Vanity, and Apollonia 6. By 1992, Prince and Warner were at loggerheads over both money and his music. He decided to take the battle public by appearing with the word slave written on the side of his face. His argument was that he was signed to Warner, and they, as a result, owned and controlled his name as well as any music released under that name. He changed his name to a symbol and was known as the artist formerly known as Prince. Prince felt record contracts were professional slavery.
The reason why it became such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise. And they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much longer. But it's not like we're against them or anything like that. The idea is that we find better ways of working with one another. It shouldn't be a situation where they own the album or the work. We're talking about intellectual copyright. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they ship.
You're an unusual person. Most people don't get famous with one name and then change it, right? Would you say? What's the story of that, by the way?
Well, I had searched deep within my heart and spirit, and I wanted to make a change and move to a new plateau in my life. And one of the ways in which I did that was to change my name. It sort of divorced me from the past and all the hang-ups that go along with it.
Why then did you choose the artist formerly known as?
Well, I didn't choose that. That was chosen.
It chosen for you.
Yeah.
On December 31st, 1999, my publishing contract with Warner Chappell expired, thus emancipating the name I was given before birth, Prince, from all long-term restrictive documents.
On April 18, 2014, the fight ended. giving Prince complete ownership of all of his master recordings he made with the Warners over the years. Suddenly, Prince died on April 21st, 2016. By June 2021, Primary Wave, a private music publishing and talent management company, bought 100% of Prince's youngest sibling, Omar Baker's interest in his estate after previously purchasing 90% of Tika Nelson's stake and 100% of the late Alfred Jackson's inheritance, as well as 3 separate entities owned by Primary Wave. Per Rolling Stone, this intellectual property includes Prince's name and likeness, royalties from his masters, and publishing rights, as well as his renowned Paisley Park studios. Until this year, Toby Emmerich, who has been with Warner Brothers for much of his career, served as chairman of the Warner Brothers Picture Group. He was born the son of a Romanian Jewish and Hungarian Jewish mother and a German Jewish and French Jewish father in New York City. On June 1st, 2022, Emmerich announced his resignation from his position with Warner Brothers, which will be filled by Michael DeLuca, the former president of production at both New Line Cinema and DreamWorks. DeLuca was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, to a German Jewish mother and Italian-American Catholic father. And Pamela Abdi, the former president of MGM's Motion Picture Group and executive vice president at Paramount Pictures. Arista Records was founded in 1974 by Clive Davis, who was the president of Columbia Records from 1967 to 1973, where he signed the likes of Herbie Hancock, the Isley Brothers, Earth, Wind & Fire, and Sly and the Family Stone. Clive Davis is a Brooklyn-born Jewish American who was raised in Crown Heights. He was the CEO of Arista until 2000, when he founded J Records. From 2002 until April 2008, Davis was the chair and CEO of the RCA Music Group, which included RCA Records, J Records, and Arista Records. Chair and CEO of J Records, and chair and CEO of BMG North America. Clive Davis is responsible for signing such artists as Aretha Franklin, Dionne Warwick, Phyllis Hyman, Jermaine Jackson, and Babyface, and probably his greatest known prodigy, Whitney Houston. In the 70s, Davis inked a deal with Gamble & Huff, which brought to the company the famed Philadelphia International label. And likewise, in 1989, Davis inked a deal with L.A. Reid and Babyface to form LaFace Records, which brought us the likes of Toni Braxton, TLC, Usher, Ciara, Outkast, and T.I. In 1994, Davis and producer Sean Puffy Combs entered into a joint venture that resulted in the creation of Bad Boy Records, with an artist roster that grew to include Notorious B.I.G., Faith Evans, Mace, Total, and 112. Along with LaFace Records, Bad Boy became the most successful hip-hop and rap label of the 90s, with a shelf full of Grammys, Soul Train, and other industry awards. Bad Boy amassed sales of more than 12 million albums in its first 3 years. The Notorious B.I.G.'s posthumous Life After Death album went diamond, selling 10 million copies.
We all welcome you on this very special night, honoring your husband. Hello and welcome to the First Lady of Music, Beyonce.
Under Davis, Arista carved its niche as the only record label in the SoundScan era, whose tracking began in May 1991 to occupy the top 3 spots on Billboard's Hot 100 at one time. This occurred for a 5-week period in 1995 when TLC's Waterfalls held strong at number 1, while Monica's Don't Take It Personal and One More Chance by Notorious B.I.G. alternated at the 2nd and 3rd position. Arista later staked its claim to the top 3 positions on Billboard's Hot R&B chart in February 1999 with Heartbreak Hotel by Whitney Houston, Angel of Mine by Monica, and Nobody's Supposed to Be Here by Deborah Cox, which stayed at number 1 for a history-making 14 weeks. All 3 singles were executive produced by Clive Davis. Jermaine Dupri's So-So Def was established in 1993 as a spin-off of Dupri's production company of the same moniker through a joint venture with Sony and Columbia. When So-So Def's distribution deal with Columbia ended, Dupri moved the label to Arista. Davis stepped down from Arista in 2000 and started J Records, an independent label with financial backing from Arista parent Bartelsman Music Group, named with the middle initial of Davis and his 4 children. BMG would buy a majority stake in J Records in 2002, and Davis would become president and CEO of the larger RCA Music Group. Today, Arista Records is owned by Sony Music Entertainment, and Clive Davis went on to guide the career of his next prodigy, Alicia Keys. The majority owner of the Universal Music Group, or UMG, formerly MCA Records, is Vincent Bolloré, a French billionaire businessman and chairman and CEO of the investment group Bolloré. Started his career as an investment bank trainee of one Baron Edmund de Rothschild. The chairman and chief executive officer for UMG is Sir Lucian Grange, born and raised in a Jewish family in North London, England, United Kingdom. Billboard magazine named Grange the most powerful person in the music business on 4 occasions, and the first ever executive of the decade. Subsidiaries of UMG includes, but are not limited to, Capitol Music Group, Def Jam Recordings, EMI, Interscope and Geffen Records A&M, Motown Records, Priority Records, Polydor, Virgin Music, Murder Inc. Records, founded by Irving Irv Gotti Lorenzo, and Rockefeller Records, founded by Sean Jay-Z Carter, Damon Dame Dash, and Kareem Biggs Burt, which spawned Kanye West. Let's take a look at Def Jam Records. If you've been around hip-hop for as long as I have, you both know and love Rick Rubin and his contributions to the culture as co-founder of Def Jam Records with Russell Simmons. Rubin is jointly responsible for launching the careers of artists such as Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, and Public Enemy. Rubin was born in Long Beach, New York, and grew up in a Jewish household in nearby Lido Beach. Rick Rubin was also co-president of Columbia Records from 2007 to 2012. Lior Cohen is an Israeli-American record executive who was born in New York City and grew up in Los Angeles. It was Cohen who brokered Run DMC's endorsement deal with Adidas and New Coat, LL Cool J with Troop Sportswear, and Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince with Le Coq Sportif. After Rick Rubin's departure from Def Jam in 1988, Lyor Cohen became Russell Simmons' partner in the label and was running it day to day. Today, Cohen is the global head of YouTube Music. After the split of Rockefeller Records, Jay-Z became the president of Def Jam Recordings. He would state, Lyor Cohen, who I consider my mentor, once told me something that he was told by a rabbi about the 8 degrees of giving in Judaism. The 7th degree is given anonymously, so you don't know who you're giving to and the person on the receiving end doesn't know who gave. The value of that is that the person receiving doesn't have to feel some kind of obligation to the giver, and the person giving isn't doing it with an ulterior motive. It's a way of putting the giver and receiver on the same level. It's a tough ideal to reach out for, but it does take away some of the patronizing and showboating that can go on with philanthropy in the capitalist system. The highest level of giving, the 8th, is giving in a way that makes the receiver self-sufficient. Dame Dash still blames Cohen for the breakup of Rockefeller. Interscope Records was founded in late 1990 by Jimmy Iovine and Ted Field as a $20 million joint venture with Atlantic Records of Warner Music Group and Interscope Communications. Jimmy Iovine was born in Brooklyn, New York, to a working-class Italian family. In 1992, Iovine and Interscope acquired the exclusive rights to market and distribute releases from Death Row Records, founded by Marion Suge Knight and Andre Dr. Dre Young. With controversy of the gangster rap lyrics from artists such as Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, Time Warner severed ties with Interscope by selling its 50% stake back to Field and Iovine for $115 million in 1995. In 1996, 50% of the label was acquired for a reported $200 million by MCA and Corporations, later known as Universal Music Group. Interscope's artist roster has included, but is not limited to, Tupac Shakur, Dr. Dre's Aftermath Records, Eminem, 50 Cent, DaBaby, Juice WRLD, and Kendrick Lamar. In 2006, Iovine and rap producer Dr. Dre founded Beats Electronics. Tupac's All Eyes on Me is often regarded as the greatest rap album of all time, going diamond, selling 10.6 million copies to date. Today, Interscope is owned by UMG through its Interscope, Geffen, and A&M imprint. Priority Records is a label founded by Canadian-born Brian Turner, who has worked with a multitude of artists, including NWA, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, WC, and Mac 10. He has also been involved in the production of numerous films, including Friday and Next Day Air. Priority distributed music for Suge Knight's Death Row, No Limit Records founded by Master P, Rap-A-Lot Records founded by James Prince, Dame Dash and Jay-Z's Rockefeller Records, and Eric Eazy-E Wright's Ruthless Records, run by Jewish record executive Jerry Heller out of Compton, California. Priority Records is also owned by the Universal Music Group.
Jews are 2.4% of the population, but 35% of the Forbes 400. African Americans are 13.6% of the population, but only 0.5% of the Forbes 400. Instead of listening to the wealthiest and most outspoken black man in the media about the issues he has with potentially racist and stultifying Jews in the industry, which is what going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people translates to in Ebonics, he is completely excoriated. 92% of U.S. Jews identify as white. Israel is known to suffer from intense racial discrimination against its Arab, Mizrahi, and Ethiopian communities. To destroy the life of a black man who says he's going to speak up about the oppression African Americans face from white capitalist owners is insanely racist and problematic. I wish Abraham Joshua Heschel was alive today to deal with this. What I think he would do is meet with Kanye and allow him to air his grievances and acknowledge the problematic power imbalance between Jews and African Americans in media and American society. He would encourage Jews and their allies to take what Kanye says to heart and to see this as a renewed call to anti-racism in all of our society, to support African Americans in their quest to have a seat at the table, and for Jewish people to help African Americans get there. Remember, Jewish Americans have an average net worth of $150,890, and African Americans have an average net worth of $24,000. Beating on Kanye for talking about that only reveals your racism. Have a nice day.
All right. Enough is enough. I mean, it's not enough is enough. It's that I always, for 40 years, have been an advocate for the dialogue between blacks and Jews. Why? Because of my experience. And I'll begin with the beginning. When I was a child, I was in the hood, and it was by all accounts the ghetto. I mean, we were underserved community. We were all black. We were mostly in poverty. But I was bused to a school, a white school, in a white neighborhood. Archie Bunker's neighborhood, because from Queens, over there was Archie Bunker's neighborhood. And I would go there in public school, and they would chase me. The Green Ways, the Irish gang, would chase me. And the only place I could go was in this community, this little co-op buildings, co-op buildings. And these co-op buildings, I didn't know until later, were Jewish. Me. So there was my first experience with Jews. I didn't know they were Jews. They were white, all white to me, right? But they were Jews. They were my first experience where Billy Lampert and Richard. So these kids, their families protected me. All right, flash forward, I get adult, and I get in the record business, and I meet Rick Rubin and Leo Cohen, and they're my first partners in music, and they were very, very good partners. They did their job, I did mine. And during that time, I was growing as a manager. We had so many bands. I represented so many bands, from the Beastie Boys and LL Cool J and Public Enemy and Slick Rick, so we were the managers. And I would go, my friend Jeff Wald, who was a mentor of mine, Jewish guy, just died, one of my best friends throughout my entire adult life. I went to his wedding. He married this African-American woman, Deborah, who I adore, and his daughter, Sarah, is my family. He married Helen Reddy. Okay, so Jeff Wall, my dear friend who just died, took me on vacation to the Koala Hilton in Hawaii. And all the senior executives and chairmen of the music companies were there. Now here I am, a young black man at the Kahala Hilton. Everybody there is Jewish. The entire community there is Jewish. And everybody there is way more successful than me. So I'm running around sucking up the knowledge. Like I'm learning the game. I'm sucking up game. And I became friends with all. The only person who came once that wasn't Jewish was Tommy Mottola, but he never came back. But all of them, the Seymour Stein, whoever they were that were chairmen, I was their friend. And I was a person they would look to kind of help a little bit. And they helped me later on. I might tell that story, but probably don't have time. with the Public Enemy problem. I went right there and tried to fix the fight between Public Enemy and some of the members of the Jewish community. But they empowered me, and I learned a lot, you know, and Jeff Wall was my supporter. And all the chairmen of the music industry were Jews. But you had to flash back before that all the first artists who became pop and who got on the radio and everything else were promoted by Jews. So the Jews did what the WASP didn't want to do in that case. In the music industry, they were the ones who, I mean, of course there was some exploitation, but then who wouldn't exploit an opportunity when no one would help you but the one guy? So the one Jew would say, I'm going to do this, and some of the deals were very fair, some were not so fair, but they were the only game in town. The Jews helped empower blacks early on in music. But for me, they empowered me, and eventually I got a record deal, and we had great success.
I just wanted to go ahead and make a video about something I have a unique experience in. So I directed a bunch of rappers, people like Gucci Mane, Snoop Dogg, you know, Lil Yachty, the list goes on and on and on, okay? I learned a lot of things, and I have left the industry largely over my political beliefs, but there is something I want to impart to people to hopefully, you know, make some sort of change happen. So I have a challenge to rappers, and I know some of you still follow me. I know a bunch of the celebrity blogs still follow me from trying to get news from music videos and things like that. So here's the truth. The truth is this: a bunch of young black male rappers keep dying. You know who's not dying? Record executives. The record executives that push for them to continue to make songs and create a culture that is obsessed with death, drugs, and sex. Period. The industry's obsessed with it, but those record executives, they're not dying because they don't push this culture on their own people, but they're encouraging you to push it on yours, and they're paying you handsomely to do it. The reality is, I know a lot of you. A lot of you are good people. You're family guys. You're not the image that you put out there to the world. Why? Why don't you be the example? Stand up. I challenge you. Be the example. Make music about the culture you want to see.
In the 35 years between Scott LaRock's shooting death in the Bronx in 1987 and Migos rapper Takeoff's murder in 2022, there have been approximately 91 rappers killed, about a rate of 2 homicides per year, and sometimes more. During the last decade, drug abuse rates, particularly prescription drugs, have increased. Simultaneously, music consumption has dramatically increased, and the leading genre is currently rap music. A lyrical content evaluation of the top 25 most popular rap songs between 2006 and 2018 identifies references to alcohol, illicit and prescription drug misuse. Results: 72% of popular rap songs contain references to one or more substances, with 947 references, which resulted in 63 references to drugs or alcohol after just 1 hour of listening. Further, 50% of songs included illicit drug references, including marijuana at 38%, manufacturing or selling drugs at 19%, cocaine or crack at 17%, and methamphetamines at 6%. Prescription drug misuse occurred in 20% of songs, including prescription cold medication at 13%, and other types of opioids at 4%, and various other prescription drugs, i.e. Xanax and Adderall, at 10%. The rise in music consumption with rap music leading in popularity and 72% of songs celebrating drug usage is a concerning trend, especially as prescription drug misuse is rising in popularity within rap music. Who's responsible for promoting this lifestyle to the public?
I don't know what's this opioid thing, man.
Well, being a crackhead wasn't cool back then. Being a crackhead wasn't cool. Now they seem like they're making it cool to be drinking lean and syrup and
it's
to
the
be on
most
these
dangerous.
pills.
It's the most
and
dangerous
Molly's
thing that's facing our society.
So why sign an artist that would promote that?
Because I already answered that question. You weren't paying attention. She asked me talent or issues, and I said talent. But I have to. I can't give up on people.
But I'm saying that's hypocritical, though. You're saying the
it's
opioid problem's a problem.
opportunistic.
Yeah.
I got people to feed. I got a business to run.
Okay, so this right here is a chart of Universal Studios, 20th Century Fox, ABC News, CBS News, Columbia Pictures, Warner Brothers, ESPN Sports, Fox News, Washington Post, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, MTV Music Television, Nickelodeon, USA Today, Wall Street Journal, Comedy Central, NBC Entertainment, Google, what else do we have? Disney, ABC Kids and Family, YouTube, Los Angeles Times, Discovery Network, Paramount Pictures, Facebook, Huffington Post, Yahoo, Marvel, Hulu, Cosmopolitan, Time, Touchstone, Associated Press, Pixar, Miramax, HBO, New York Post, LucasArts, MSNBC, DreamWorks Animation. Now, the thing is, I skipped over maybe about 5 of them because it was just unclear on this list. The red are the executives that are Jewish at these companies.
Michael Jackson said, "Black artists have been taken advantage of." And Prince squabbled with the label over ownership of intellectual property that was conceived, birthed, and cultivated by him. I very well cannot tell anyone what to be offended by, but I also know that none of us are in any position to say what someone else's grievances are, especially when we are only privy to their public personas. By his rant on Drink Champs, Kanye West has a serious grievance with the entertainment executives. And for as talented as he is as an artist, he is a horrible communicator. And I could see the charge of anti-Semitism by that interview. But that was a week after the charge had already been made. As for the advertisers on Madison Avenue, I can see them distancing themselves from him because they're in the business to make money, not alienate consumers. But what I don't understand is how JP Morgan, a U.S. bank, can tell a billionaire to come get their money and cut ties with them. Since when did the banking industry have a conscience? Addressing African Americans specifically now, Kanye West has spewed a lot of contentious and hurtful rhetoric towards our community over the years, but we've overlooked it as being just Kanye. Now he has offended another group, and the response from African Americans, especially black analysts, has been that of more of offense than the very people he hurt. You're being dictated to. Cancel Kanye as if you have to be told what to be offended by, and when to go march and what to go march for. You know who do that? Children. As a community, African American buying power is an estimated $1.3 trillion a year. But someone else can dictate where you spend your money. Far be it for me to be an apologist for Kanye West. And I certainly wouldn't jump off a cliff for him, because I believe he is a narcissist with a variety of mental health issues. But I did hear who he said his grievances were against, while apologizing to the Jewish community as a whole. I don't have a problem with any people, race, or religion, but I do recognize the difference between what is factual and what is subjective. If someone says to me that the NBA is dominated by black players, I shouldn't take that as racist, when the fact is 73.2% of the players are black. Black players are overrepresented on the playing field and underrepresented in the ownership in sports. The NFL's ownership is 95.3% white. That's not racist, that's a fact. With only 2 of the 32 NFL owners being minorities and none black. That's facts. 83.6% of the NHL's entire workforce is white. Everything is not racist or stereotypes, although there may be facts that lend themselves to it. When we look at the upper echelon of the companies in the media and entertainment field, the facts show that Jewish people are very heavily represented. And forgive me if I'm not seeing how that's being used as a racist trope. The record shows it to be a fact, and a fact that should be applauded and proud of if you're Jewish. But with great power comes great responsibility. In 1995, when Michael Jackson used a derogatory term to refer to Jews, the only man to do so, in his song, "They Don't Care About Us," he was sharply condemned and forced to change the lyrics. But ever since the advent of NWA and gangster rap, you can say the N-word, the B-word, or ho as much as you want to, and there's no issue. Why isn't there a greater sensitivity when it comes to using racist, demeaning, and violent language towards black people in music? Again, African Americans, you are also complicit in this. Because if you came together like the Jews do when something doesn't serve your community, you could also shut down this type of hate speech. So no, I'm not upset with the Jewish people because of Kanye West. They're doing what they have to do to maintain. But I do find it kind of ironic that the last line of Ye's tweet accuses these executives of trying to blackball anyone whoever opposes your agenda. Isn't this kind of proving Kanye right?
It's actually proving what I had to say.
Besides, I'm an avid studier of the scriptures, and I've never read where Moses or Jesus deemed anyone anti-Semitic. So that can be used as a trope in itself.
I was telling my people, I feel like black people is the worst when it comes to criticism.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because they will see all the other races jump on this one black person and then they gonna go jump on them too.
Is mental illness an excuse for bigotry? You know, no, I don't think so. And I know a lot of people who suffer from mental health issues who don't maneuver like that.
You know why there's not a lot of Jewish rappers? Because there's Jewish owners and Jewish CEOs. They run these labels. They're the bosses.
And it hurts me sometimes when we have to sit up here to talk about stuff that divides the game. Now we got to answer for what this idiot has done.
This Thursday coming up, we're going to be at the Cityplex 12 Theater in Newark, New Jersey.
Let's conclude this inquiry with Kyrie Irving, who in my opinion has been conflated with the Kanye situation, because Kanye said, "I'm actually a Jew also." On Thursday, October 27th, Kyrie Irving tweeted an Amazon link for the film Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America. In response to the tweet, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, a Jewish American lawyer, issued the following statement. Kyrie Irving made a reckless decision to post a link to a film containing deeply offensive anti-Semitic material. While we appreciate the fact that he agreed to work with the Brooklyn Nets and the Anti-Defamation League to combat anti-Semitism and other forms of discrimination, I am disappointed that he has not offered an unqualified apology and more specifically denounced the vile and harmful content contained in the film he chose to publicize. I will be meeting with Kyrie in person in the next week to discuss this situation. To put some context to the tweet, Kyrie tweeted the film from Amazon without commentary, but his actions has been seen as promoting the movie. Kyrie is represented by Shatilia Riley Irving, his stepmother and only black woman agent in the NBA, which is dominated by men like super agent David Falk, known as the king of basketball agents. Falk, who was born into a middle-class Jewish family on Long Island, New York, client list boasts but is far from limited to Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, Allen Iverson, Charles Barkley, Kenny Anderson, Moses Malone, Alonzo Mourning, and Stephon Marbury. Falk negotiated the 10 highest contracts in NBA history and negotiated professional sports' first $100 million contract. Other notable agents are Jeff Schwartz, founder and president at Excel Sports Management, Sam Goldfeder, former investment banker at Morgan Stanley Mark Bottlestein of Priority Sports and Entertainment, and Aaron Mintz. Irving is not the first African-American celebrity to face scrutiny over what is being called a black Jew conspiracy theory. In 2020, former Kansas City Chief running back Larry Johnson, Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, and television host Nick Cannon all came under fire for suggesting black people are Jews.
To a movie based on a book.
And it has to disavow this film that he tweeted out.
The Nets have handled Kyrie badly from day one.
Now Brooklyn Nets member was suspended for 5 games without pay.
Why did the team feel like now is a good time to suspend Kyrie?
You know, I would point back to the release, the statement that went out from the team yesterday, and in that, you know, clearly outlines that over the course of the last 5 to 6 days, the organization has made multiple attempts to get with Kyrie and his representation and to have them clarify his feelings and, you know, put out a sense of remorse.
I went on to Amazon Prime. I was like, you know what, let me see if there are any documentaries on Yahweh. So went in the search bar, typed in Yahweh, that came up. Went out and shared it on my platform. That was my night.
Kyrie, the documentary listed among falsehoods, it said the Holocaust didn't happen. Do you believe the Holocaust
Those falsehoods are unfortunate. And it's not that I don't believe in the Holocaust. I never said that. Never ever have said it. It's not come out of my mouth. I never tweeted it. I never liked anything like it. So the Holocaust in itself is an event that means something to a large group of people.
I, for one, am not a Holocaust denier, and I believe it was a terrible tragedy in world history. But I also can't say that I've seen any Holocaust denying in this film. But amidst the controversy, there have been growing calls to remove the movie Hebrews to Negroes from Amazon. The irony in this is Amazon, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, also distributes Mein Kampf, the autobiographical manifesto of Nazi party leader Adolf Hitler, who was responsible for the Holocaust. Mein Kampf helped inspire Timothy McVeigh to commit the Oklahoma City bombing. If that wasn't bad enough, Amazon also carries, in his own words, the essential speeches of Adolf Hitler and Hitman, a book used by a contract killer for former Motown Records producer Lawrence Horn in the 1993 Silver Spring, Maryland murders of his ex-wife Mildred Horn, their disabled son Trevor, and a nurse, Janice Saunders. If this film is removed, it is an affront to the First Amendment, which protects speech from government censorship. Filmmaker Ron Dalton addresses the Amazon controversy.
As an independent filmmaker, you can't just upload any movie that you please whenever you want on Amazon. Amazon has a content review guidelines. Let me say that again, in case people don't understand how it works. Vudu, Redbox, Netflix, Amazon, all these platforms have content guideline reviews, or content review guidelines, whatever you want to call it, content guidelines. And part of the content guidelines includes things like misinformation, hate speech, illegal stuff. And of course, under the hate speech, they're going to have anti-Semitism, speaking against the Holocaust, speaking, things that so-called anti-Semitic. This is in their content guidelines under the category hate speech. And so in order to get your movie promoted and published on Amazon, you have to go through a quality control process, and your media, your files, your captions, your art, everything has to be in proper format. Everything has to be in proper format. And on top of that, they do a review process where they actually review the material and they see if it violates any of the content guidelines. In 2018, I submitted the movie, and it took a couple of days, maybe a week, as they were reviewing it, and it passed. It passed. Nothing has changed in the movie since then. The content guidelines have been updated every now and then, but it's nothing really major. And this is the reason why the movies are on Amazon.
Ron Dalton issued a press release which opens, "I vehemently deny any allegations made by Rolling Stones, the ADL, and media that the Holocaust never happened and that my books and movies make that claim. I respectfully request that everyone take the time to watch my films and read my books. You will discover that this claim is false and that my films do not promote terrorism, bigotry, anti-Semitism, or other hateful ideologies. I reject and condemn any forms of prejudice or hatred towards any person, regardless of their race, religion, ethnicity, lineage, ancestry, or sex." And Kyrie Irving also does not subscribe to anti-Semitism.
Kyrie, for the record, do you have any anti-Semitic beliefs?
Again, I'm going to repeat. I don't know how the label becomes justified because you guys ask me the same questions over and over again. But this is not going to turn into a spin around cycle, questions upon questions. I told you guys how I felt. I respect all walks of life and embrace all walks of life. That's where I sit.
I think what people want to hear, though, is just a yes or no on that question. Yes or no.
I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from.
I'm sitting back watching Kyrie Irving losing endorsement deals over a film, and Kanye West losing endorsement after endorsement. But the media is silent about Brett Favre, who stole millions of dollars from the welfare system in the poor state in the Union. And Adam Silver neglected to suspend Draymond Green, who physically assaulted teammate Jordan Poole. Ironically, the condemnation of this film has had the opposite effect.
This film is now #1 on Amazon in several different categories, so the impact of his popularizing and promoting this film is felt far.
Producer and filmmaker Jeff Jaffers says, "I just watched the film. It is not anti-Semitic in any way. There are no tropes. There is nothing at all that would suggest anything but an exploration of the origins of black culture and its connection to Judaism and Israel. Irving is being set up. It's a complete scam. He's being whipped because of his influence. Anybody who calls this film anti-Semitic hasn't watched the film. Any corporation that bans Irving is taking him down for other reasons. It's a setup. He's a political pawn. They want him gone because he's a thinker and they must get rid of him. They only want obedient people like Shaq. Everyone must watch this film."
I know Kyrie Irving is not anti-Semitic.
Jewish people know when you dehumanize us this way, we know what's around the corner.
So in that same statement as those are the tropes that dehumanize Jewish people, the same buck breaking.
What's that? I don't really know what that means, to be perfectly honest.
The slave masters would bring the buck, the one that gets out of line. So all the other slaves would see lash after lash, show them the power to set an example. This is what you must do to fall in line.
Shakur told, man, hope everybody had a good Shabbat. Let me tackle this topic that I discovered, man. That Kanye tweeted something about me as if I'm turning my back on the community, as if I'm advising Kyrie to apologize for being a Hebrew Israelite. I would never ask Kyrie to apologize for being an Israelite. Are you kidding me? I dedicated about 20 plus years of my life on researching and learning who we are as a people. You understand me? And why would I advise my brother to say, hey, apologize for saying you were Hebrew? Only thing he had apologized for is the little portion that's inside the video that's hurtful to the Jewish people. And as an Israelite, it's our job to be a holy nation, so we understand that. So come on, man, don't try this here. You already know me. Y'all know me. Y'all seen what I've been learning over the years. Y'all follow my path. I would never advise someone to apologize for being an Israelite. Kanye, you should know this, man. You know me. Holla at me, man. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kyrie.
Thank you. We have to. Thanks, Kyrie.
When they talk about Jews, people, you gotta realize, the first Jews were black.
You do your real true research about the Hebrews and the Jews and the Israelites and all that, you find out that they look a lot like us sitting in this room right now. So maybe somebody stole some of the Jewish religion. Anyway, let me shut up. I don't have to be like some people stole from the get-go.
So, the question on the table would be, is there any validity to these claims? We'll do this the way of the Bible. Out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, may every matter be established.
And I'd like to now bring up another interesting place that you're finding descendants of the Israelites, but may not necessarily be from the 10 tribes, but will also play a role. And it shouldn't be overlooked. It's a very serious scenario. Is in Africa. Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now of being from the people of Israel. Does that mean they were from the 10 tribes? Likely not. We were taught by the historians and within our own traditions that when the Romans conquered Judea a few hundred years after that the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery, into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. And where it gets interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. You know, so what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is, most likely there is something there. And most likely, maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe that the Jewish people today who are white, Caucasian people came in a little bit later on. We know that some of the greatest sages of the transmission of the Torah were converts from Rome. You have a man named Onkelos who wrote a commentary on the Torah, unprecedented, that we still learn today. He was a convert. Some of the largest pillars on the transmission today were Roman converts. So here we are, we're Caucasian Jewish people, and now you have people in Africa saying that they're the real people of Israel. It can't be ruled out at all. We know they were sold into slavery. We know now that they're fulfilling prophecies by saying
your forefathers, now walk with me, don't miss this. Because 98% of everybody out there believes that their roots starts in Africa. So they call themselves Black African Americans. And really what they should be talking themselves is they are what? The Hebrews and the Jews of the original temple of the city of David.
Amen.
And the Kente cloth that you find in this, that most black culture uses as African cloth is the center cloth that was used in Solomon's temple and his mobile moving tabernacle. So where did you get that cloth from? Moses' mobile moving tabernacle. How did Moses get it? Because he was married to Zipporah and also an Ethiopian woman, and etc. Now do you get the picture?
But if you are African, or if you are African American, God wants to get your attention now. Now, more than ever, He wants to get your attention. Now, listen up. God has brought the COVID-19 virus as He wants to set a highway for the King. He is creating an order out of the chaos in the world. It's a new world order, and it is the Messiah world order that is being established. On Shavuot, we celebrate together the night of the bride, when we have seen 104 nations, friends, over 3,000 concurrently, 100,000 views together, stand and say, we will take upon ourselves the Torah. We will take upon ourselves Messiah. We are ready to make a way for Him. Now, what does that have to do with the African American community? That's where we have to turn to the Bible. We have to understand what the prophets of Israel has been telling us and been prophesying to prepare us for this day. And it's not going to be a long message, But it's very clear. Friends, I'm sitting down praying, and a voice from heaven speaks to me. Today, I have to tell you what the voice of heaven has said. Here is what the voice from heaven said. Are you ready? The voice of heaven said, Africa has the seed of Israel all throughout the continent. All throughout the continent. This was a surprise for me, friends, when I saw these clusters in Africa, when I start to hear the report. Friends, because of you, we distribute 1,000 books. And our people rejoicing, our people returning to the roots. We are starting to hear reports of revelation in Africa, of the Jewishness among the Lembas from Kenya, from the Igbos, from Madagascar. We're getting all of those reports, and God spoke to me before I even opened the scriptures. And he says to me, you know what this is happening? This is happening because the bride have an article of clothing in Africa, and unless Africa is ready, the bride cannot be ready. Remember, the bride is whole, the bride is full, and a major part of the house of Israel, what we scripture call Zera Israel, the seed of Israel, is right there, hidden in Africa. In a minute, you will understand what's happening in the United States of America. Tune in with me. Stay on this message right now. I need you to focus.
Have a huge community in Africa that they know in tradition, that they are Hebrews, that they are from child of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. They know it for sure. You have communities that are running services and prayers by the halakha, keeping Shabbat and eating kosher. They know their roots, like you can't argue with them. They're stronger than you. They will tell you who they are. They don't ask you even. And they have the Bible, and it's already...
For a lot of people from the tribe of Judah and Levi are also black. We know that the Lemba tribe in Africa has been traced genetically back to the tribe of Levi. We know that there are a lot of black Jews as well, because the genetics show up even though they're a dark skin tone. So we know that Judah married a Canaanite woman and had some of his sons were black as well.
And so if you read Deuteronomy chapter 28, it matches perfectly what happened to the Hebrew slaves, the black Hebrew slaves, during the slave trade. It just matches it perfectly.
Back up now. I think we just rung a bell here. Hold up now.
Okay.
Hold up. Hold the presses.
Okay.
Hold up. I hope everyone is listening to this. This is you about to rock some boats now. Listen to what he's saying here. So you are saying that there's a great chance, or more so, that the black people that links directly to the slave trade are from the lost tribes of Israel. Is that what you're saying here, sir?
Yes, I am.
Were one central figure in Igbo lore, a figure called Eri, became more and more significant. And Eri, if you go to the Tanakh, it's a son of God, tribe of God. So as the belonging, so to say, to a lost tribe of Israel seemed to be an entry point to Israel, it also became more popular in Nigeria. So yes, there's definitely like a return to this concept of the lost tribe. Also here in Israel.
I also spoke about something which could be a little controversial, which is the Hebrew Israelite phenomenon in America, where you have descendants of the transatlantic slave trade identifying with being of the children of Israel. Now, can you tell me, in this transatlantic slave trade, was there any Igbo blood?
31% of the African American population is believed to be of Igbo ancestry, because Igbo land suffered more from the slave trade than any other part of Africa. And the Igbos were dumped in places that are presently the United States of America, more than in other parts of the Americas. So definitely, a lot of the group identified as African Americans today have Igbo ancestry.
There's a growing consciousness amongst people of color in the Americas who likely descend from Israelite origins brought as slaves from Africa. Unfortunately, due to generations of trauma, loss of identity, along with the almost total rejection of this conversation amongst mainstream Jewish spaces, many Black Hebrew Israelites get to the wrong conclusions and lash out at the Jewish people. Many people around the world are on a journey to decolonize their identity, but too many are coming from a very colonized Christian framework, using mistranslations of mistranslated texts from the King James Bible and arriving to false conclusions that mainstream Jews stole their identity. To those watching this video that have never heard of this, it is a fact that a large percentage of the Black slaves sold during the transatlantic slave trade were of Israelite tribes displaced in Africa.
I'll reveal to you a little secret. I went to the Talmud and I opened the Gemara that we have, and I started to dig into a big spiritual research where the 10 tribes of Israel have gone. And I was able to find in Masechet Sanhedrin, page 94, that the Gemara asks where the 10 tribes have gone, and clearly Mar Zutra state to Africa. Wrote the 10 tribes went to one place, Africa. The other 2 tribes, Benjamin and Judah, spread all over the world, and Hashem will gather them, and the 10 tribes of Israel went to Africa.